Hi, I'm Vicki Rogers, and I'm here with Dave Benson, who is better known as Dave The Dogman. And he is a wonderful professional dog trainer, and we're going to learn a lot about dog training. But first of all, I want to ask Dave about his mission, which is transforming lives with dogs. So tell us about that, Dave.
So my mission is transforming lives with the power of the dog. Since 2003, when I first started training dogs, I've had a lot of opportunities, not only with families, but also with local prison inmates and Camp Canine, which I'll talk a lot about here in a little bit. Also Humane Society of Oldham County, dealing with rescue dogs and families that have adopted rescue dogs. Worked with multiple different organizations, including Dogs Helping Heroes, which trains rescue dogs for wounded veterans and first responders. And then my main focus right now is helping kids with challenges and getting them service dogs to help mitigate some of the needs that they have to lower the responsibility of the parents, and so the kiddos can gain more independence.
I love it. Those are all wonderful, wonderful goals, and not only goals, but you're actually doing this. So, So first of all, let's start out with the hat. Tell us about your hat.
So that's one of the big questions I get all the time. Two things. One is a ball cap on me just doesn't look right, the way my head's shaped. So I started getting into different abstract hats. What this hat represents is my lineage. So my family, my parents, my grandparents are all from Texas. And so as an honor to them and my lineage, I wear this hat every single day to say thank you for all that they did for me in getting me here. My grandfather especially was a Texas veterinarian, and he is one of the main influences that I had in my life in getting into the love of animals. And that love of animals led me to, when I was a kid, we had cats and gerbils and guinea pigs, which are hard to keep alive, by the way, but not the cats so much. And then eventually I finally got my first dog at 16 years old. And at 16 years old, I got my first dog, Spiral, and all the way up to Mr. Pete here that's down on the floor, and we'll get to him here in just a little bit.
He's such a good boy.
Yep.
All right, you want to tell me about your other dogs? Tell me about them.
So Spiral I rescued from Venango County Humane Society. So I grew up in Franklin, Pennsylvania. It's just north of Pittsburgh, about 70 miles. And I got her when I was 16 years old. It took me that long to talk my mom into actually letting me get a dog. And so I had her, and then all the way through college, ended up leaving college and moving back to Louisville. I went to Eastern Kentucky University. When I moved back here, I always had an interest in animals. I don't know if you've ever seen Jack Hanna's Animal Adventures, but there was one episode that he did on Moore Park University. It's a university out in LA. And they teach you to train any animals. They have over 100 different exotic animals. And that's where I really wanted to go. But getting into that was tricky. You had to have some animal experience. So I decided that I wanted to learn how to train dogs. So I then started asking around. I worked at TGI Fridays at the time. I was a waiter. And one of my regulars I was telling my story to, and he said, you know, if you really want to get into dog training, the best man that you can work for is Matthew Duffy at Duffy's Dog Training Center. So in 2003, I met Mr. Duffy. I was actually paying him in the beginning to learn how to teach dogs. And then the next year, I was offered a part-time position and eventually became the head trainer there for many years. So I took Spiral with me. And even though she was, oh my gosh, she must have been 10 at the time, she was still a stubborn little girl. Spiral was an English Shepherd. It's an Australian Shepherd Border Collie kind of cross. Very intelligent, very driven, kind of sassy when she wanted to be. But at the same time, even she was my hangout dog. Even in college, people knew my dog over me. Everywhere I went, she went with me. So she was just my running buddy. I ended up doing some training with her, with Mr. Duffy, and then getting into a part-time position, just working with the dogs. And that's one thing, there's a lot of different vernacular in the dog training world. One is a dog trainer. A dog trainer typically focuses just on the dog. I consider myself a dog training consultant because I consult the owners to train the dogs. As we are all finding out with the internet in the last decade, that's the most important part. Got to teach the owner to teach the dog.
Got to train the owners.
Right. And that's my true passion. I've loved behavior my entire life, but human behavior is what I really, really grab a hold of. Having empathy and compassion for where people are coming from. And that's the trickiest part when I walk into a family environment. Yes, I'm there to help them with the dog, but there's so many different family dynamics. And in the last 2 years, I've been an in-home training consultant. So I've really had to just step into people's whole lives and say, okay, this is where you are, this is the priorities with your dog, and then blend what suits their lifestyle and the dog simultaneously. And that's really, I call it a work of art. It's like painting a picture, because no house I walk into is the same, no dog I walk into is the same. So with Spiral, I got that foundation, basic obedience, learned how to train people and dogs over the course of many years. During that time at Duffy's, there was specialty dogs that came in, a lot of aggressive cases. We were one of your last stop shops. Veterinarians would say, hey, if you don't get some training for this dog, I'm sorry, but the only other alternative is euthanasia because of their aggressive facets. That's one of the things that I love doing, was having these really challenged dogs, and most people are washing their hands of them and saying, we just can't do anything. And then with the training methodology that I was taught and implemented, we were able to rehabilitate them enough to where they could at least stay in the family and or become safe enough to where we could place them in another home.
How do you do it?
So
give me some
dirt.
Yeah.
So dogs, in the human terminology, when we communicate verbally. So if a kid were doing something we wouldn't want them to do, no, quit it, stop it, knock it off, get away, get out of it, we can verbally cue them. But imagine a child's about 18 months old. They're walking towards a hot oven. You can't tell them, hey, the oven's hot, don't touch it. They're going to just keep going. But what you have to do is physically redirect the child away from the hot oven towards something that they would rather do, a toy or something like that. And then over time, they auditorily can understand. Well, what happens with aggressive cases, when a dog is barking, there was a woman years ago, German Shepherd. I walk into the training room. This dog is just, just raising all kinds of cane at me. And God love the owner. She didn't know any better, but she's petting him. She's going, it's all right, it's okay. She's trying to soothe him. The problem is she's accidentally telling him it's okay to be aggressive. So once I said, please stop petting your dog, she said, oh, okay. Next thing I asked, I said, will you please use your leash to redirect the dog away from me and back to you? Dogs learn physical body pressure. They learn through a bite on the neck. So if a puppy were getting out of line with the pack leader, a pack leader would nip him real quickly. He would not say, no, quit it, stop it, knock it off, get away, get out. So what happens in this aggressive explosion is, I'm going to nerd out for a second, blood goes from the prefrontal cortex, executive function, back to the amygdala. That's fight or flight. So that German Shepherd was uncomfortable with me. It's called defensive. So that's flight mentality. It's like a pendulum swing. And then he was also using his aggressive facet by coming forward. Get away from me. He's trying to make me go away. So what the leash does is it keeps him from getting too far behind me, pull him up next to me. And then he says, I'm going to run that pressure off, barking and carrying on. Then I use the leash to redirect him back towards me. What it does is it stabilizes him without using my voice. Then, as soon as he starts to calm down,
yes,
that's when I pet, praise, love on him, give him a treat. And so he finds out, oh, I got it. I can't run and hide. I can't be aggressive. I have to neutralize. And what's kind of cute is a dog that has that facet, they start to vibrate because all that energy is just barreling around inside and they have a hard time controlling themselves. But eventually what happens? They start to calm down. And as soon as they start to calm down, if they're at level 10, they drop to an 8, that's where I'm going to pet them a little bit. But here's another place where people make mistakes. Good boy. It fires them up again. So what I want is more of a soothing praise, kind of like a kid with ADHD. I want to make sure it's, nice job, David. Like, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And so once you reward them there, then dogs learn by consequence. It's called the heuristic process or trial and error. So once they learn this idea of, oh, the more I calm down, the more I get good stuff, and the owner is not accidentally exacerbating the situation by telling him it's okay to bark and carry on, that pendulum swing starts to stabilize. The aggressive facet is genetic. German Shepherds especially are known for being overprotective. It's called defensive aggressive. It's one of the 8 facets of aggressive behavior. And so we can't change genetics. But then behavior modification, that's where we come in and show them this is an acceptable behavior, positive reinforcement. This is an unacceptable behavior. That's where the redirection comes in. And so over time, when a distraction pops up, the German Shepherd looked at me and went, nope, what do you want instead? So it's deferment back to handler, waiting for that positive reinforcement. Over time, his explosion gets less and less, and the frequency of it gets further and further apart. Behavior modification is very similar in human and dog. The difference is, with dogs, it's got to be mechanical. It's got to be quiet. Dogs learn by the heuristic process, which I mentioned, which is trial and error. They also learn from modeling. If I'm fired up, they'll fire up. If I'm calm, they're calm. So I have to show them I'm calm, cool, and collect. I'm going to redirect that behavior. Once you're calm, then positive reinforcement. So all these aggressive dogs that we were getting in, it didn't matter what the aggression was. Defensive aggressive, I've talked about, that's towards people. Could be dog aggression. German Shepherds are known for that too. So same with your Pit Bull Terriers, Chow Chows, etc. So it's a genetic predisposition. We have to show them, hey, you cannot use that behavior. That's where the leash redirection comes in, then positive reinforcement. Eventually they see that distraction, that stimulus, and they start internalizing that energy, and actually not only internalizing it, redirecting it back towards us. The problem, what most people do is they try to get their dog to sit right next to them. Well, the issue with that is now you're taking all that energy that wants to go forward and you're making them swallow it. So now it's going to pop again. Energy can't be created or destroyed. But what we can do, Dr. Carl Jung, emotional displacement and emotional rearrangement. Stop doing that behavior, start doing this behavior. That's why you hear me use the word redirection, not correction. I don't want to just stop it. I want to take that energy and put it somewhere good. Sound familiar?
Yes. Yeah.
So that's basically the gist of some aggressive cases that I worked with over the years.
Okay.
Talking about that leads me into one of my next dogs, Ninja.
Okay.
Ninja was a border collie.
Oh, smart.
Very smart. Way smarter than I am. When I called his breeder and I said, why'd you sell me a dog smarter than me? She goes, well, it wasn't hard to do, Dave. And I was like, hey, wait a minute. I set myself up on that. I called him Ninja because he had an all black mask, he had green eyes, just an absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous dog. But he was a natural herder. It's 6 months old the first time we put him on sheep. He was just all in, and he was a phenomenal animal.
Aww.
He taught me a lot about, he's a good sized boy too, he's about 50 pounds. He's a little bit larger than your average border collie. After him, then talking about German Shepherds, my dog Boss. I got him as a rescue. He was 5 years old. The owner couldn't keep him anymore. He was just a little bit too much dog. He was a true Czechoslovakian import German Shepherd. There's a difference between your working Shepherds, which are from Europe. They're very high drive, very type A personalities, very CEO of companies. And the American Shepherd's a little bit more laid back, a little bit more, hey, how are you? But this dude was a real deal. He was a hot tamale. So I taught him how to control his aggression and actually use it to my advantage. So quick story about him. So I was at a hotel. We were down in Little Rock, Arkansas. There's a guy in the hallway talking on his speakerphone, and he was just being loud and obnoxious and pacing the halls. And I had driven 10 hours down there. I was getting ready to drive 10 more hours the next day. So I politely asked him, sir, would you please go to your room, go downstairs or something? I'm trying to get some sleep. Well, this guy wouldn't listen. So I grabbed Boss by the collar. I open my hotel room door. I tell him, "Geh out," which is speak in German. This guy just took off, buddy. See you later, bud. Just down the hallway. Told him, "Aus." Walk back in the room, tell him plot switches down. I go to sleep. Nice and quiet. So
Did he like doing that for you?
Oh, he loved it. You could see a look on his face. He was like, I got to work today. Thanks, Dave. So, awesome. But he was also taught how to find bed bugs. If your room ever starts smelling like a Krispy Kreme donut, you might have bed bugs, or your kids stuffed a donut in your bed, one of the two. So They have a sweet smell to them, and that's what dogs can actually find.
Unbelievable. I had no idea.
Yeah, he's also taught search and rescue to find people. One time my brother-in-law shot a deer, but it didn't go down all the way. So my dog actually tracked the deer for him the next day.
Wow.
And found him. The beautiful thing about German Shepherds is they're the most versatile dog on the planet. So he taught me a lot. That's when somebody says, what are you teaching your dog? I'm like, it's kind of the other way around because they have their personality traits. And then that's one of the challenges also is dogs and owners, typically their personalities match or part of their personalities match. Mm-hmm. Like Boss was more of my warrior. He was more of that part of me that sets boundaries and has to take action, when I need to. Where my border collies, my next dog, for example, was Ren. Ren is a little 35-pound border collie. She's an absolute blast. Agility dog, weaving in and out of everywhere. She's a magician, though.
Really?
Oh, very much so. Here's how you know when your dog's a magician or very intelligent. One, Ray. You have an item on the floor that's not theirs. I taught her very clearly with that redirection. Let's say it's a paper towel. I teach her with my leash, like I was talking about earlier with the aggression. If you go towards the paper towel, I'm going to redirect you with leash. If you leave it alone, I'm going to pet you. So here's what she does. She leaves it alone and all of a sudden lays down and starts swimming on her side back towards the paper towel. So I redirect her with the leash. Well, then she crawls around the other side, tries from a different angle. She was trying all these different angles to figure out, how can I get what I want? And so that's when you have an intelligent kid. So my mom tells me, she's like, yeah, you were a blessing and a curse because you understood what I wanted very quickly, but you also understood what I wanted very quickly and tried to figure ways around it.
Yes.
Dogs are very much the same way. From Ren, then we come into Mr. Pete.
Oh, he's so
Pete
good.
here,
Look how good he's being.
he's just hanging out.
He's so good.
With Pete, he is an English Labrador. People a lot of times will ask me, they're like, what kind of dog is that? And I say, it's an English Lab. One of the main differences is he has a bigger, blockier head. He's a little bit shorter and squattier than most Labs that you'll see. So some people think they're pit bull crosses or something like that. He was bred by my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law is the executive director of an organization called Hero Labradors. My brother-in-law was hit by an IED in Iraq in 2005, and in 2006, my sister called me, said, hey, he's not doing so well dealing with PTSD, etc. So we ended up getting him actually in Pete's lineage, it's his great-grandfather, I believe, was a dog named Major. I flew up to Pennsylvania. It's kind of a cute story. Chuck, my brother-in-law, Major Chuck Ziegenfuss, comes out of the house, looks at me, looks down at this little puppy. I've got a little puffball like him. Next thing you know, he's like, that's a dog, that's Dave. That's my dog. And I was like, yeah. So ended up giving him the dog, and it helped rehabilitate him, getting out of his PTSD and managing that so he could become more incorporated with the family. Pete is almost 5, and so 5 years ago, Hero Labradors and my brother-in-law gifted Pete to me as a demonstration dog for Dogs Helping Heroes. Dogs Helping Heroes is an organization that I was part of for many years, from 2013 to 2018. And what we did, or what we still do, is rescue dogs. And a lot of the rescue dogs come from Camp Canine. Camp Canine is in the Kentucky State Reformatory. It used to be in Luther Luckett Prison, but now it's in Kentucky State Reformatory.
Where is that?
LaGrange, Kentucky.
Okay.
The dogs come from the Humane Society of Oldham County. I've had the honor and privilege of working with the Humane Society of Oldham County for over 12 years. And they do anything from cat rescue to dog rescue. There's actually a little separate part. They do bird raptor rescue as well. Wonderful organization, great people that I've had the privilege of working with for a long time. So they bring in the dogs from local rescues, and then the dogs are placed into Kentucky State Reformatory with Camp Canine. Camp Canine, there are 24 inmates there of all different shapes, sizes, color, races, different reasons that they're in there, etc. But what's cool about that is it doesn't matter what these guys' background is. I'm there to talk about the dogs, and I don't carry in that judgment. I don't know why they're there. I don't care why they're there. It's just this idea of how can we work together to better these dogs' lives, number one, help them get rescued out to then transform the lives of those families. So what I'm so blessed to do is it's a trifold system. It's helping the Humane Society of Oldham County. Then it's helping rehabilitate these inmates, not only the inmates that I'm working with, and there's a quick funny story. So one of the inmates, 6'6", 300 pounds, tattoos all over him, bald head, much like me. And so he's just this big human being, and he's real barrel-chested, and he walks in, and I hand him this little chihuahua. As soon as he grabs this, oh my God. I mean, all of that just melted away just immediately. The transformation right away. And that's why I love the transformative power of the dog, because you can look at a situation, you can look at a person, place, or thing. Just think about this. You're walking down the street. Some just random person has a random dog. You might even be having kind of a bad day, and you look at that dog, and all of a sudden, oh, it's just that bright spot, that moment.
It is, yeah.
What I love, even with the masks we've had to wear for the last year and a half, I can still see people light up even behind them, and I'm like, ha ha.
You can see it in their eyes,
exactly.
Can't you? Yeah.
There's simple ways that dogs can help transform like that. And then with the inmates, there's some guys that are in there that have gotten out, and now they're actually running their own dog training business. What I offer is I want them to have a trade when they get out. Not only the obedience that I teach them, but I also have a professional groomer that comes in, so they have some professional grooming experience. I'm also teaching them about the business of dog training, so they know how to structure a business when they get out. And so my offer to them is that way they have something. When they get out, they can't just say, well, I don't have a trade. I don't have anything to fall back on. Nobody will hire me. Nope. It's right there in front of them. So it gives them that option. And some of them are taken up on it. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful mission. And with Dogs Helping Heroes, the next component was helping a hero. So heroes are first responders. They're also wounded veterans. And then also Gold Star families, families of fallen heroes. One of the heroes, Kyle, and his dog Cash, a Labrador, first time he had been out in public in years, and he wanted to go on a trip. It was with one of the other veteran organizations. They were going camping. He said, Dave, I'm scared to death. I got to go in this airport. I've barely been out in public, and now I got to fly. So he said, what happens if somebody comes up and wants to pet my dog when I'm in the airport? He's like, I don't know how I'm going to be able to handle that. Well, terminology for that is my dog is working right now. Thank you anyway. So when people hear that my dog's working, oh, I don't want to screw that up. And most people know this by now, but if you don't, if you see a service vest, don't talk to the dog, don't look at him, and don't approach him. Guess what? People do anyway. So guess what we train for? Exactly that.
Yes.
Neutralizing that, no matter what somebody does within reason, the service dog says, that's none of my business, unless their handler actually tells them to go say hi, which is okay sometimes. So Kyle's in the airport, somebody comes up, says, can I pet your dog? He can't remember the words that I gave him. So when I'm sitting there talking to him, I'm like, well, Kyle, what did you say? As soon as I said that, his wife starts laughing. And I was like, well, this is going to be a good story. All of a sudden, he just goes, I just told him, I'm in a rush. And he just kept running. And I was like, well, that works. Good job.
I'm in a rush.
I'm in a rush. See you later. The more impactful story, I'll try to get this out without getting choked up. There's a man named John, another Labrador named Cash. He was the first man that I had the honor of working with Dogs Helping Heroes. And at one point, I got a phone call from him one early morning. And what he said, I'll never forget for the rest of my life. He said, if this dog weren't in my house last night, I wouldn't be here anymore. And it's those moments that I live for, because we talked about just family dogs walking down the street. That has impact in itself. It can brighten somebody's moment. But they can also save lives. And when that hit me, the impact that myself and everyone else at Dogs Helping Heroes was having on this one single veteran, let alone over 25 since then, I thought, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's the impact that I see at the prison with these inmates. It's the impact that I see with the Humane Society and the families that rescue these dogs. The impact with these veterans. Yeah. And it keeps going. So since 2018, when I stepped away from Dogs Helping Heroes, I started working with kids with challenges. Oh my God. I don't have kids myself, and it's always something that I've wanted, but it wasn't in the cards for me. So instead of just having one, I have tons.
Okay, so how do you find the kids, and what organizations do you work with?
There's been multiple different organizations. Humane Society of Oldham County actually found one of the boys. His name is Shane Roof. Shane is afflicted by AFM, which is acute flaccid myelitis. Basically, half of Shane's body is paralyzed. It was an infection that came on very suddenly. Luckily, he's regained half his body. Some kids don't at all. So we rescued a dog through the Humane Society and then placed him with him almost 2 years ago. He helps with his physical mobility, stability. He picks up dropped items. Shane actually just graduated from high school. But when Shane was in school, if he dropped his pencil or a phone or anything like that, he couldn't pick it up. Samson will actually go and grab the phone and hand it back to him. So it gave him more of a sense of independence than having to ask somebody to come help him. There's been other families that have approached, that got a little bit of TV time. And once that got some TV time, then other families have approached over the years. We've placed dogs with kids that are affected by Down syndrome. One of my favorite little girls, little Leah. Leah was adopted from China. She's now 7 years old. She has autism, and she's also nonverbal. So one of the things with kids with autism is they elope, they run away. If she has an episode, sometimes you don't even know what the trigger is. But if she has an episode, she will run right out the front door and she will keep going. Now, God love her parents. They have extra locking systems and everything else, but they have 5 other kids. So needless to say, sometimes that door isn't locked. So I'd worked with a couple other kids with autism previously, and what previously I had done is, as the young kids, let's say Leah tries to go out the door, the dog cuts them off. So as the service dog cuts them off, then Leah starts petting the dog, and then the dog redirects her back into the house. And then as she's petting the dog, it refocuses her. Again, I was talking earlier about the amygdala. That's the emotional center in the brain. That's where fight or flight is. As soon as you start taking some sort of action, like if a person has a panic attack and we tell them to count backwards or breathe, the blood actually goes into the prefrontal cortex and the anterior. You actually start thinking because you're taking action. So when these kids have these episodes, when they start petting the dog, they start to calm down. Why does the dog help with wounded veterans and first responders? Same reason. When they have a flashback or any type of episode, if they rub their hands together or rub their legs, a lot of the different veterans would have different tells. They put their head in their hands. John, for example, put his head in his hands. Next thing you know, Cash would come up and start petting him. So as you pet a dog, oxytocin gets released in the body. Serotonin, dopamine, cortisol levels actually drop. There's actually a biochemical change in the body instantaneously as soon as you touch a dog. So as Leah goes up to Franklin, her service dog, she doesn't pet him. She's not that interested in him. She gets down on the floor, crawls right underneath him, and goes out the door anyway. And I was like, ah! So we're running after little Leah.
She's resourceful.
Yes, very much so. So then I'm like, okay, what I've done in the past isn't working. So I have a roundtable discussion with an OT, a PT, a behaviorist, and Leah's mom, and another dog trainer. And we're sitting in this circle of people, and we're just brainstorming. And somebody says a sensory room. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but kids with autism love sensory objects. Anything crinkly, different texture, color, shape, size, anything that's not just the ordinary world. They get stimulated by it because of their sensory. So as they get into these sensory rooms, they have ball pits and swings and all kinds of stuff. It actually helps them calm down. Just like I was talking about with petting a dog, the same thing happens in their body when they get these sensory objects. So I thought sensory object, service dog, service vest. What I did in this roundtable discussion is we created a service dog vest that is a sensory vest. So hanging off this vest are crinklies and different colors and shapes, and here's one of the best parts. Little Leah loves Reese's peanut butter cups.
Who doesn't?
Right. So in one of those pockets is an empty Reese's peanut butter cup wrapper. So as she's going towards the door, Franklin cuts in front of her. She's got all these shiny objects first off, so she sees those, and then she sees her real prize, which is that Reese's cup wrapper. She then grabs the Reese's cup wrapper. Well, here's the important part. How does she get a Reese's? There's nothing in there. She has to take it to her mother. So as she takes it back to mom, then mom realizes, oh, you've got an episode. I was watching one of the other kids. God love her mother. She is hyper vigilant, but there's 6 kids in the house. So Leah brings that wrapper back to her, and then it breaks the cycle. So now Leah has not run away. When this idea came to us, an OT and a PT just start crying right there. And I thought, uh-oh, what happened? What I didn't realize was the impact. These kids sometimes don't make it home. They get taken, they drown, they run away, they're gone. Again, the transformative power of the dogs saves lives. So what my life mission is to continue to transform lives with the power of the dog. My focus right now is on these kiddos with challenges. I have seen so many instances in so many times and so many people, the littlest thing from a smile all the way to saving a man's life to saving a child's life possibly. And I'm not going to stop until everybody understands and sees that mission clearly.
That's fantastic. Oh my gosh, what do you want everybody to know that you haven't already told them? Because those stories are incredible.
To dog trainers out there, the message is this. Find something that you're passionate about. For me, for a while, it was veterans. It's inmates still, now kids with disabilities. Helping families with their family dogs is super important. Helping families with troublesome dogs, super important. But my encouragement to dog trainers out there is to find something that you're super passionate about. And if you don't know what that is, call me, have a conversation. If you think, well, I want to work with this demographic, but I don't have any experience, call me, let's have a conversation. If I can't help you, I know people that do. To dog owners, I want you all to realize that you taking your dog for a walk can change somebody's day. They can be in this darker time, I hate calling it that, but with COVID and depression and et cetera, you can take your dog for a walk, somebody can look out their window, see your dog and get a smile, and it's the first smile they've had all day.
Yeah.
All dogs have impact. They don't have to be these specialized dogs. With families with kids with disabilities, my want with disabilities and challenges, My want for you all is to hopefully get a little picture on some things that a service dog might be able to help your life with. The goal of a service dog is to help mitigate different challenges and disabilities that kids have. So that way, mom and dad, one last story. So I love this woman to pieces. Dawn, she's just this light in my life. Her son, most challenging case I've ever worked with. He is affected by autism. He is nonverbal, and he is also blind. When I first got this call, I thought, okay, let's do it. And Dawn has been right there with me. We created a sensory vest for this dog. When Theo is the young boy's name, when he gets triggered, especially out in public, there could be a child crying in the background. That's one of his heaviest triggers. Now, what Theo loves is music. So what Dawn came up with, and I give all the credit to her, I said sensory vest, she created this vest. Mm-hmm. There are these buttons, like the Staples buttons, that was easy. Yeah. It's basically what those are, but there's music on it. So what we've taught Theo is as he gets worked up, we hit that button, or he hits the button, he hears that music and he starts to calm down. That's right on the back of the service dog. Also, there's a handle. So Theo has a hold of the handle. It's on top of the dog's shoulders. It's a stability and mobility handle. Mm-hmm. The dog is then leashed to Dawn's waist, and here's why. All Dawn wanted to do was go grocery shopping without her lovely son attached to her arm so she could shop with both arms and push a cart. So now,
lofty goal.
That's exactly what she can do. She's pushing a grocery cart, got this dog tethered to her and her son in tow, but here's the beautiful part. She feels safe because if Theo lets go or anything like that, the dog stops immediately and she gets alerted. So she can actually be involved in what she's doing and have less fear that her son is going to be in a dangerous situation. The best thing I've ever seen was when we finally did this for the first time. It was at Whole Foods a couple weeks ago. Dawn comes around the corner, here comes her son, here comes her dog. All of a sudden, Dawn lifts her arms, just like this. She's like, ah, and then goes right back to pushing the cart. I thought, mission accomplished right there. But there's a lot of different challenges that these kiddos have. A lot of parents aren't versed in what service dogs can do.
That is awesome. Well, I know you're going to want to find out more about how you can transform your life or someone's life that you love with the power of a dog. So go out and pet a dog today and find out more about Dave Benson and his wonderful work at DaveTheDogman.com. Thank you for watching.